Dr. Jazz.
Greetings from Maribor. That's where I am. You played here like 1997. So in
Where
Europe.
are you? Where are you at?
I'm in Slovenia, Maribor. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I played there. As a matter of
Late
fact, we may be
90s.
going. I think I'm going to Slovenia in May.
Oh, seriously? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, shit, I should catch you.
Yeah, I could. Let's see. Actually,
Oh wow. Oh, the Brane, the one of those gigs. Who organizes them?
matter of fact, yeah, I was just going to pull up
Yeah, right.
the tour. Let's see, Brana. It's Slovenia. Oh, where is it? Maribor. Yeah, I'll be there on the 18th, I think.
Oh man, that's my hometown. Seriously, you're in Maribor? What the? It's never.
Yeah, it's with
nothing.
John Medeski, Keith Carlock, and Felix Pastorius.
Oh man, yeah, I saw that. I wanted to ask you about that because it's a killing band. And I know you worked with Keith a lot, but how did the connection with John come about? Because I don't know if you played together before. Or...
Yeah, we played together. Medeski, Martin, and Wood, they were guests with the Soul Bop band with me and Randy Brecker in I want to say 2013 or 14. And we did a European tour. And then I was a guest with John and Medeski, Martin Wood at the Blue Note shortly after that. And then also with that group a few years later in South America, we did some concerts in Brazil.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's gonna be killing. I mean, it's like, I love John. He's a monster.
He's amazing. He's amazing. It's just his ears are so open. He's so,
Yeah. That's amazing. That's such wow, fantastic. It's not much things happening here in Maribor, where I live. So then now it's like something this comes up, and I'm like, yeah, finally,
cool.
A gig.
Oh, cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I've known Bronny for 40 years, probably.
Oh wow.
He promoted Miles Davis concert sometime in 1982 or 83. That's when I first met him.
Wow, that's a long time. Yeah. I remember, because like he did the TV show and you performed there, and we drove from Maribor, which is like 1 hour to Ljubljana. It was free concert, so everyone was like teenagers, and we were like, oh man, this is some incredible shit. It's like,
oh cool,
and
awesome.
all these amazing bands. Yeah, so I've known him also like for 20 years, so we've been friends. And
oh wow, cool.
Yeah, so super. But otherwise, I wanted to ask you also, like, I've listened a lot to the last record you did with Robben, Common Ground, and I saw you played in Tokyo this year. And are you guys preparing something new with Robben? And what's your story with him? Actually, I mean, probably goes again way back to late 70s, early 80s, or I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of Robben's for years, and there was a sort of an all-star concert in the mid 80s that I did. It was a whole bunch of musicians. Robben was on guitar, Tom Scott, Randy Brecker, the list goes on and on and on. But we didn't really get a chance to hang, and I've always liked his music. And I'm trying to think. We did something at some festival and talked about it, and then where was it? We did a tour together. It's hard to, I get all mixed up on how some of it all starts, but I've just been a real fan of his writing and of his playing. And so we did the first record, which was The Sunroom, which came out in like 2020 or 19. And then the pandemic hit. We just finished the second one in like 2020, and they didn't want to put it out, of course, until the world sort of came back. But we've just sort of really meshed musically because he comes from, he can play great jazz. His writing is very complex as well as simple, so we can go in any direction. And that's the kind of thing I like. The musicians I like to be around are musicians that can play and be inspired by all kinds of music, whether it's pop, rock, whatever, no boundaries. And that's how Robben is. And so it's sort of a thing where we just talk and say, do you want to do a tour in so-and-so a period of time? And he'll say, sure, just like that. And then we put it together and we go off and play, and he'll call and say, you want to do another record? I'll say, that'd be great. We'll do it at this period of time. You write some stuff, I'll write some stuff. And I'll say, that sounds like a great idea. Talk about the musicians. We keep it very simple.
Yeah.
And then, and we do it. And it just seems to have been special every time, you know. Right now, I'm in Nashville now. He used to be in Nashville and he moved to London.
Really? I didn't know
and
that.
now he's, yeah. Not many people do. And then we were in Japan this last March. We went a couple times in the last few years. We did a European tour, not last summer, but the summer before, which was really fun. And when most bands were not touring because of COVID, we decided to go. I continued to tour even during COVID. Me and Mike Stern would do a tour together, and I thought there's no way we're going to get through this tour without getting COVID, and we never did. But maybe we're immune. No, we're definitely not immune. I've had it twice. But so with Robben, it's always been a labor of love of music and like-minded thinking when it comes to it. He's pursuing a lot of things now in the blues category and stuff he wants to do with his own band, maybe horn sections. I'm pursuing the Vans band. And so I'm not doing so many co-led stuff right now. And so I'm just really concentrating on getting back to doing what I did for 25, 30 years, which was my own band.
Sure.
And sometimes, most of the time, it's not as easy, because when you put together an all-star band, it's easy to book. That's what the promoters like. That's what the festivals like.
Yeah.
But I've never been one that goes along with that program. I mean, when it comes to my own bands. So, I mean, it's a labor of love, man, because you get tested all the time, you know. But when the festivals realize this is what I'm doing, and the band always kicks ass. I mean, it's always something that's on the highest level, and it's always interesting. And they know that's what it's going to be. You know, they can take it now or take it later, but we're not stopping. And that's been the way I've kept it going forever. Plus, I'm writing a book now too.
Really?
You know, I got to, yeah.
Like a autobiography, or?
Yeah, in a certain way. The period when I joined Miles's band wasn't really categorized or written about or described correctly as far as I'm concerned, because no one contacted me about that. And I was the one that helped him put the band together. And I was with him almost every day of his comeback. And I know how it happened. And I was there, and I have a good idea what he was thinking, because we talked every day. We hung out every day. And I just want to be as accurate as I can from my perspective on what happened at that period.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got Marcus in the band, I got Schofield in the band, I got Mike Stern in the band. And those are key parts of how that whole period evolved.
Yeah.
But that's just part of it. I mean, it's just what he was thinking, what was going on. And as an observer being there myself, just what it felt like, you know, what Miles was thinking, what I thought he was thinking anyway. And just kind of, you know, put that into perspective. But that'll only be, you know, 1 or 2 chapters. The rest of it, I want it to be a positive approach to music and how I look at my career or anybody's career, and how it can evolve, what ways to look at it, and kind of be an inspirational book with some funny stories as well, you know. I had a chance to do a tour with Herbie Hancock. I've spent 3.5 years with John McLaughlin, and I've been able to spend time doing stuff with like the Allman Brothers and sitting in with Willie Nelson, and all the different kinds of phases I've gone through in my own recordings. And I just sort of want to document this. It's like doing a record, but you're writing it out in your own words.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. I'm not going to say, you know, oh, I started piano with 6, and then, you know, that's boring.
That's boring. Yeah.
Yeah. I want different essays. There's some really funny stories with Miles, funny stories with John McLaughlin in that period. I just want to say positive, uplifting things that that'll find interesting, but also sort of a lesson too. Sure. You know, because a lot of musicians in time eliminate themselves. And that's one of the things Miles used to say. He used to say, I never fired anybody. They always eliminated themselves. Yeah. And it could either be a personality trait, an ego. There's a whole bunch of things that don't necessarily need to happen with that musician, but happened and it cost them either a gig, their reputation. And I never forgot that. And, you know, I always wanted to make sure that I was at least doing the best I can from my side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's important.
I'm looking forward to this one. I mean, to the book. I love reading this, you know, autobiographies and stories. I mean, that's why I do these talks. You know, I'm a musician, but I love hearing you guys talk about, you know, like I did this talk with Mike Stern the other day, and he just himself went into a Miles story, like how he was making pasta for Mike, and it was hilarious, man. It's just these small details, and I think that's what jazz is all about. Also, you know, these stories. That's what we love when we are on tour. That, you know, someone comes up with something, and it's so beautiful. Yeah.
And I mean, it's sort of like just brings it to life about, you know, sort of, you know, the life on the road is over the years, you know, I've had some wild bands together where, you know, I never took, I have a cat that wants to get up here.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but come on, Micho. He likes to be part of everything. You know, and it's never been easy. Every time I put a band together, it's from inspiration. It's because I want to do it that way. And it's never been an easy thing. It's Micho. And so he's a jazz cat.
Of course, mine as well. They're all the same.
We have them all over the place. His big thing is he's going to try to like hit the keyboard when I'm not looking, but I'm keeping him at bay. You know, and so it's, you know, in 1990, I started, you know, my push band. So I had like all different kinds of music and sometimes a rapper, and we do these different things. And that's not the norm, and for sure not what was going on at the time. And so, you know, all those different times are a challenge. I mean, it would have been really easy for me to put together a straight ahead jazz group, and every festival would have taken it. And every critic would have been into it. And if I'd have played that game from the beginning, but I never did, you know, because that's not where I'm at. And that's the one thing Miles did tell me: be true to yourself. Believe in believe in the kind of music that you want to do. Because if you do, then other people will. But that's all you have, you know. And I've that's been with me ever since the very beginning. It's almost like a curse, but it's all you could do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't want to touch too much about Miles and you, because, you know, you've talked about him so much, but since you mentioned him, what were, I mean, you already mentioned one lesson, but what were the biggest lessons you learned or observing him as a band leader, or especially also musically, I mean, that you picked up?
Well, he really just let everybody do their thing, but just watching him and not be afraid to do what you feel, you know, and not be afraid. Of course, if you're someone like Miles Davis, you can do anything and people are going to go, oh my God, that's great. You know, I mean, just think of the great musicians that have been out there that never really got the attention that they deserve over time. But if they had the aura like Miles had, people would have said, it's genius. They're geniuses. But because the world didn't take them in and do all that, never happened like that. But we do the best we can. No, but no, I know. But it's like that's one of the lessons. That's one of the biggest lessons, is just do what you feel, you know, and make sure that the musicians that you get are good people too. That's always important for me. Before I hire anybody new, first thing I ask somebody is, what are they like a person? You know, who are they? And what kind of person are they? So it's because you got to spend 22 hours a day with them on the road. And if they say, oh, they're a great player, they're just hard to deal with most of the time, but you'll love them on stage. I don't even go anywhere near it. It's not worth it.
Sure. Yeah.
There's so many great players out there that want to play that, you know, I would sometimes tell young musicians, I would say, I gave a talk several years ago to some kids that are like teenagers at a camp in upstate New York with guys from the Allman Brothers Band and some rock musicians. And the previous night, a lot of these kids, I don't do drugs or anything, and never did. And a lot of these kids are smoking pot and everything. And they're like 14, 15, 16. And their parents were there. They didn't really know what's going on and everything. And I witnessed it. We all had our own little cabins. We meet during the day and we give these lectures and talks and whatever. So I gave my speech to all these kids, or a few hundred of them, I guess. And I said, how many bass players do we have here? And they raised their hand. How many guitar players? There's 1 million guitar players, drummers, you know. And I'd say, how many of you guys are friends? And they're like, a lot of the bass players are good friends, you know. And how many guys are practicing all day? And they'd raise their hand. And I'd say, well, you know what? It's hard, isn't it? And they say, yeah. And I'd say, did you know that your best friend, if you get a great gig, has just practiced just as much as you? If you lost that gig, he'd say, man, I'm really sorry for you, but he'd be really happy he got that gig. Because every time somebody loses a gig, someone's really happy to get that gig. And I said, if you do something stupid, you're going to make a lot of other people happy. And think about all those hours you practiced in the practice room to get it together, to do something stupid. And I said, believe me, your best friend will smile and take your gig because he's working just as hard, you know. And like all the parents come up after and go, that was so great. That was so great. I said, hey man, it is what it is. Sure. You know, I mean, there's always going to be great players that, you know, they do themselves in on their own. Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah, definitely. How could you as a band leader, I mean, I know you did those records in the 80s already, The Alternative Man and Living in the Crest. And when did you start leading bands on the road? And how was that like for you in the beginning? I mean, was it hard for you? And now you're like, of course, like really experienced. But how was it in the beginning to be the band leader?
It's always hard. Touring is always hard. It's never for sure, ever. Anybody who says it's for sure is full of shit, because it isn't. Sure. Some tours happen, sometimes they don't happen, you know, even with all-star bands. I mean, there's actually no place for ego ever. I mean, I've done 1 million solo records and I've gone out there with a lot of different people and I've continued to tour. It's never a given. And so in the beginning, in 1990, I was offered this tour. It was me, Richie Morales, Mitch Foreman, Victor Bailey, and Hiram Bullock. And there was a GRP tour that had got canceled from Dave Grusin, who had all these dates. Promoter called me and said, Bill, can you put a band together? You want to do all these dates? I said, sure.
Wow. Okay.
So I did. And that was the first time. And then I went out with Petite Blonde, which was a band that I put together with Dennis Chambers, Chuck Loeb, Victor Bailey, and Mitch Foreman. We did a live record called Petite Blonde. Yeah. And then from that point on, I started recording for my Push record, which was supposed to be on CBS, but they were not really going to push it. My manager at the time decided to get the record from them and gave it to Lipstick Records in Germany, which was the best move, because I was playing mostly in Europe. Sure. And I just started really working hard. At that point in time with that band, it became very, very popular. I mean, we were doing probably 150 dates a year.
Wow.
And grossing a lot of money. And we started doing a lot of rock festivals. And I remember one tour, we grossed over 280,000 in 4 weeks.
Wow.
In 1994.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, wow. It felt great to do that. The only reason I didn't keep that band going, it was together for about 5 years. We did a record called Escape.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. Live in Europe, Push.
And Starfish, right? In the Moon. Or that
was after that.
That's with Adam, and with those guys, yeah. Yeah.
Starfish is one of my favorite records.
I love it too, yeah. This is what you played live here. And I remember one of my first jazz gigs, actually, that one. And I was just like, what the? Anyway.
Yeah, so then I toured. I toured for 5, 6 years with that. And the audience started getting bigger and bigger. We were making more money. And the audiences became less involved with the music and more involved with the groove and the hang. And the more popular it became, the less I was into it, only because they'd be talking during the instrumental tunes. And it just became like this big party, which is not the reason I got into music. And I remember Manolo Madrena was playing percussion. We were playing a really big place, and the rapper was doing a thing out in front. They were very talented rappers. But we used them as an instrument. We used them as over changes. You know, it was a different thing. And Manolo says, how do you like it now? He says, you're making money. The band is popular. We're touring like crazy. And you're ready to cancel this band, aren't you? I can see it in your face. And I said, almost, brother. I said, this is not why I got into it. And sure enough, I did. I shouldn't have just ended it. I should have just paused it.
Mm.
But anyway, that's when I went into acoustic groove with Starfish in the Moon and Touch and those records, you know. I mean, actually, the new record I'm finishing now is closer to Starfish in the Moon than anything else. I really worked on the harmonies. I really worked on the woodwind sections going in from one section to the next. And I really worked on the songs. And I was trying to figure out last fall what I wanted to write, because I was originally writing it for the Spy Killers, which is me and Wolfgang Hafner, Simon Oslander, Gary Granger, or Klaus Fischer. And I thought, I was trying to think of the direction. What do I feel? What do I feel? And then I decided to write, if this were your last record, what would you write? If this was your very last record, I thought, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to write. And that's what I did. And it just started pouring out. I wrote for 2 hours, 2 months, almost every day for 10 hours, 12 hours a day. And that's what this record is. And I ended up, Wolfgang is on 6 tunes. Keith Carlock is on 4 tunes. Jerry Douglas, who's a great dobro player, is on
I love Jerry. Wow, beautiful. Okay.
Bela Fleck on a tune. John's supposed to be doing a tune any day now. I sent it to him. Gary Granger's on a song. And there's do you know the singer Max Mutzke?
Yeah, from Germany.
He's
incredible. Yeah.
He's on 2 songs. I'm a big fan of Max's. I went to Bonn a year ago to record it, and then I've been recording it over the year. I've been traveling a lot.
Fantastic.
And who else? There's somebody else on there.
Beautiful.
Well, anyway, so far.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it should be mixed in January.
Fantastic.
I'm excited about it. Yeah, it's one of my best records, I think.
How do you write when you compose? I mean, you know, like sometimes you have really intricate melodies and the groove is always there. And but it's always the melody is so important for you when I listen to your compositions. Like, how do you come up with stuff with harmony, and what's your process
usually,
there?
Well, I play piano. I think I play piano better than saxophone. I usually set it to piano.
Oh, okay.
And mess around with it. Or there's a couple different ways. Or I get some ideas in my mind with a couple grooves. I'll start messing with the groove, and then the groove kind of tells me harmonically where I want it to go. And sometimes I come up with, probably the same for most people, 30 or 40 of these. And then some start to evolve more than others. Yeah. And then eventually I'll get 9 or 10 that I end up finishing. And that's pretty much how it works. I've usually haven't spent this much time over the course of a year doing one record. But I like to do the record live with the guys, overdub what needs to be overdubbed, and it's done, it comes out, you move on. Yeah. This one was just a bit different. Just, you know, it's a different world out there too, you know.
Oh, sure, definitely. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. I mean,
what do you play, Samo?
I play guitar. So.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, and been doing this for some time now, and I mean, played with so many guys you probably played with also, but you know, it's hard, but it's fun. I love doing it. So you know, it's so inspiring to hear you guys talk and transcribe stuff, and it's a blessing. So let's knock on wood. So.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean, you know, I started doing these cold plunges. Have you ever heard of that?
No. What is that?
It's where I have like a tub right outside in the back.
Oh, okay.
And I go in there in the morning, and it's about 0 in the water.
Yeah.
Centigrade. It's cold. This morning I got in, there was ice on the top of it. I go in up to my neck, and I go in for 3 minutes. And if you can do that for 3 minutes every day, you can do anything.
Sure.
And you know, because I'm like, all right, it's cold outside. It's really cold outside. And the last thing you want to do is put your bathing suit on and get in a cold tub up to your neck in freezing water for 3 minutes. But when I'm done, I'm completely invigorated. I go in the back room, I play my saxophones, I start writing. You know, I hope it's really good for me. I think it is.
I think it is. This is good stuff. Yeah. I also like showering with cold water, and I mean, these are good things. Yeah,
exactly.
Bill, I wanted to ask you just one thing, like what, you know, when did you first of all move to New York in, I guess, late 70s? And did you still catch that loft scene, or like who were the most important guys when you moved to New York, and how was that like? Because
when I moved to New York, I was just finishing school in New Jersey. So I moved in. So I was still going to school in the fall of 79. And in that fall, I ended up finding a loft on 28th Street and 7th Avenue. Funky loft. It didn't even look like you could live in it. Me and 3 other musicians. It wasn't expensive, but it was full of roaches, full of mice, full of rats, full of everything. Nice. And it was hard to survive because, you know, I started doing a bicycle messenger service right away, driving my bicycle up and down Manhattan in the very beginning. And I'd only done it a couple of weeks when I got a call from Dave Liebman, and he says, Miles called me and he wanted the number of a saxophone player, a young saxophone player that I'd recommend.
Oh, well.
And he mentioned me. And he said, I don't know if he's going to call or not, but I haven't talked to him in a while. I gave him your number. I said, oh, thanks. And I wasn't thinking much about it. And then within about a month of that, he called and you know, we got together. It's actually going to be the start of my book. First thing he said was, are you better than, is this Bill Evans? I said, yeah. He said, are you better than Cannonball Adderley, John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, blah, blah. And he listed all these saxophone players. And I'm like, oh my God. And that was in the loft. And then we went to the studio and I said, how much did I just make? I was just curious, you know, and I don't know what it was, but then I went to the bicycle messenger service and said, I'm done. You know, they were giving me like $75 a week. I think I just made $1,000 for a couple of days. Sure. But at that period, for 80, 81, 82, 83, and 84, I had 2 different lofts. The musicians used to come up all the time. Wow. Hal Galper, Steve Grossman, Victor Lewis, lots of players. And we used to play all the time in our loft. Joe Lovano lived 4 blocks away and he had a loft and we played over there sometimes. In 1981, Wynton Marsalis was going to Juilliard and he came up and played once. Sounded great. We knew that something was going to happen with Wynton. And then I moved to another loft on 27th and 6th, which is the loft that Dave Liebman had. And we played there a lot too. And I lived with Rob Aries, who was a keyboard player that used to play with Schofield in the 80s. Yeah. And it was just a commercial space that musicians could come up anytime. You know, it was purely to live the life of what we wanted to do. Just north of the Village, it took me 10 minutes to walk to the Village Vanguard. So I could just go down and we'd hang out all night, sit in at clubs, whatever, in 80, 81, 82, and 83. I was playing with Miles at the time, but, you know, it was just a lot of lofts going on. I think a lot of the loft scene was in the 70s that, you know, Dave Holland and Michael Brecker and all those guys had a loft. That was before my time, but we had lofts. There was a little bit of that happening when I was there, and then it was kind of over. Yeah, as far as I knew, but that was kind of what was happening. Yeah, we're just kind of there just to play all the time, purely to play. That's all we wanted to do.
You mentioned Joe Lovano and Brecker, and you know, obviously there's Steve Grossman and Bob Mintzer and Bob Berg and all these incredible players. How was the saxophone community back there when you came to New York? I mean, did you feel intimidated? How was your feeling when you entered New York? I mean, with this amount of players already.
Well, for me, I always got the most out of seeing players live, you know. I mean, all those guys Berg is a monster, you know, and I remember in college, he was playing with Horace Silver, and I went to see him at a small club in New Jersey. And he was walking out of the bathroom, and I introduced myself. I'm going to school at this college and to get together for a lesson, whatever. And he was like, nah, I don't really have time, man. You know, kind of, you know, hard guy, New York, Brooklyn kind of thing. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I was intimidated, and this even made it worse. We became good friends after that, you know, eventually after I'd been with Miles, and then he joined Miles after me and that kind of thing. But I mean, at that time, I'm still really young, 21, like 20, 21, 22, and those guys are older than me. So I'd love when Steve Grossman would come over and play because he's such a great player. Yeah. I mean, he was very influential to Liebman and Brecker. You know, the guy who probably had the most talent when he was 13, 14, and 15 was Steve Grossman. I mean, he could play like Bird when he was 12 years old. I mean, he played with Miles and recorded live at the Fillmore when he was 16. Yeah, I mean, he was already way beyond his years, but and I'd just be able to go hear all the post Coltrane guys in the clubs, you know. I'd go hear Steps Ahead at 7th Avenue South, which is a club.
Yeah.
And I'd hear, Mike Brecker and Steve Gadd and Mike Maneri and all those guys. And then go to Sweet Basil's and hear George Coleman Quartet. And then, I could go over to the Vanguard and hear Elvin Jones, and sometimes I'd sit in with Elvin Jones and play, and it was just a really great time,
Yeah, that's incredible.
Couldn't have been better, actually. It was really fun.
Yeah, when I hear these stories, that's like, I mean, so different, must have been so different, like really just the amount of legends that were still alive in New York and playing. That's amazing. How did you hook up with Dave Liebman? What's your story with Dave? I mean,
I met him at the Jamie Ebersol jazz camps.
Oh, okay.
And then when we come to New York, I said, could we get together for a lesson or whatever? And I always loved the way he played. I wanted to play just like Dave. I tried to play just like Dave in the beginning. And every time I'd get into a player like Sonny Rollins, I try to play like Sonny Rollins, try to play like Joe Henderson, and try to play like Dave, because I just liked it. It was modern. I knew Dave. And sometimes Dave would say, yeah, you got a little bit too close, sometimes. And there's even a video on YouTube where Dave sat in with us at the Savoy. He grabbed my horn and he said, yeah, and it says Dave Liebman sitting in at the Savoy. And that whole first part is not Dave, that's me. And Dave thought it was himself.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
You obviously know if it's you, because I mean, I could hear 4 bars of myself and I know if it's me. And I'm like, no, it isn't. That's me, Dave. But then you move on. Then you do your own style, all of a sudden, then I broke off and started, even the way I approached the volume of the soprano and the tenor and the approach was my own thing. It wasn't coming from Dave or anybody else or Wayne or anybody. And you just move on. And that's a way to increase your vocabulary, your knowledge. It's like learning a foreign language, like French or German or whatever. You learn all the different dialects. So in jazz, you learn the different dialects of how people play jazz.
Yep.
And then inevitably, you're going to play it the way you want to play. You're not listening to them anymore. You're not listening to anything but what you hear in your head to say more with what you want to say. And so I'd get together with him every now and then, and Dave would play drums. He'd go, all right, let's go. And he had a loft, the eventual loft I took on 27th and 6th. And I'd just play, and he'd play drums. And that's what we would do. And it was fun, it was really fun. And I'd go to hear his bands and stuff. It was really cool. Oh, and Miles had them, great admiration for Dave, respected him like crazy. And, very cool time,
Yeah. That's incredible. No, yeah. Like, you mentioned the 80s before, and, you touring with Miles in the early 80s. And then there were the Elements, with Mark and Danny, and you joined McLaughlin's Mahavishnu stuff, and like, how was that like for you touring wise and gigging wise? And I mean, how did you enter one group and another? And I mean, how was that for you? Like,
it sort of creates itself for you. John McLaughlin came to one of our concerts in Paris in end of 1983 and said, Bill, I'm putting together the new Mahavishnu. Do you want to join? And I'd already been playing with Miles, playing that music for a few years. And I loved John, for God's sake. I loved his music and the Mahavishnu and everything else. And I said, absolutely. And it was just like that. And then we started recording. I told Miles I was going to be leaving. And he said, well, if you're going to leave, at least you're leaving for a great band, And he even came to some of our gigs that I was playing with John, because me and Miles were really great friends. So that was really cool. And then I played with John for a long time, and we became really good friends and still are, and I'd see him, and he sat in with my band a couple times, and we talk to each other, social level and stuff. And John's great, he's him and his family. So that's how it kind of works. People start to know about people, and and then Herbie in 1989 said, listen, do you want to do this tour? Sure. You kidding? I've always wanted to play with Herbie. I mean, most gigs, that's how they happen. Yeah. People just call you. Somebody's manager or the person just calls and says, can you do this? Or do you want to do this? And sure. It's always a bummer when you can't do it because you have a prior commitment, Like one time I didn't answer it was in late 80s. I didn't answer my phone machine at the time. They had phone machines. I was traveling for like a week, and I decided I was going to come home to New York, and I'll listen to it then. That whole time, Sting was calling to want to know if I could sub and do American tour with them in a couple months. So finally, when the end of all the messages I'm listening to was his manager, Kim Turner, saying, "Well, you're not returning the call. I don't know where you are, but we have to move on. Take care." And I'm like, "Oh," because I've been such a fan of his, of Sting. You know, that happens. You know,
yeah.
Life goes on.
That's amazing. What about living? I mentioned it before, living in the crest of a wave. How did that happen? You becoming a band leader? What's the story there?
Simple. Bruce Lundvall over at Electric Musicians said, "Would you like to do a record? Would you like to do your debut record with me?" And I said, "Sure." That was it. He used to be the head of jazz at Columbia, and then he took over Electric Musician.
Yeah.
And so we figured out a time, and you know, we got everything together, and then I just wrote tunes that I wanted to hear in my head. You know, I mean, now when I listen to it, it sounds dated to me, the sounds of the synths, even the songs, you know. But it was like a first record, and I was just going to do it. Miles had told me at the time, you know, you do what you feel, whatever that is, you just do it. And the Alternative Man, after that, Lundvall said, "Why don't we do a straight ahead?" No, Alternative Man, I'm getting this screwed up. Okay, the Alternative Man, he went to Blue Note, said, "Do what you want." And I did what I want. I said, because he said, because I know that's what you're going to want to do. Then I started recording a whole bunch of rock tunes of my own with this singer, Steve O'Geary, who ended up playing with Journey. He was a house painter at the time. In 1987, wow. We got Omar Hakim and Daryl Jones and Victor Bailey and a whole bunch of musicians to play. I spent my own money. I spent like 50 or 60 grand on it, and couldn't sell it. And I brought it into Bruce, and Bruce says, "How about we do a jazz record, and I'll get like Herbie and a couple of all-stars, and we'll really push it, and we'll establish you in the jazz world, because your first two records are not jazz. They're more fusion and this and that." I said, "No, man. At some point, I'm going to do this. I'm spending money on this. This record is killer. The vocals are great." He said, "I don't know how to sell it. We don't know how to sell this. Whose record is it? You're playing solos, you're playing melodies, but the singers all over it." I said, "Hey, man, they can sell the pet rock. They can't sell this. It's music, man. Figure it out in the marketing department." No one could figure it out. So it never got sold. Nothing ever happened to it.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's been an evolution, one after the next. You know, you just keep doing what you do. That's basically what it is. That should be the name of the book, Doing What You Do.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Option.
Yeah. What about, you know, speaking of your records, I mean, obviously you've been in Nashville now for some time, but like, how did Soulgrass, this story with basically creating quite your own style, especially playing the horn, I mean, how did that evolve?
Well, interesting. I'd heard over time folk music. I couldn't name one person. I wasn't into bluegrass music. It's just not what I'm into until later on. And I just heard these melodies in my head with these different instruments like dobro, mandolin, violin. And I heard these interesting combinations. And to me, all of a sudden, it started sounding like bebop, you know, you know, and I heard these really contagious melodies. And I loved the way the banjo sounded with that music as sort of a percussive instrument. It really has a nice pad to it. Now, no one in my world, in my head, I hadn't heard anybody doing that. I'd never heard the flecktones. I just knew that because this is early on in my phase of doing it. I wanted to get those instruments, but didn't know anybody that played those instruments. So somebody said, "Well, you should go see Bela. You should get Bela Fleck. He's like probably the best banjo player for that." And I said, "Okay, great. Where is he?" But I still hadn't heard that music.
Oh, wow.
I just didn't. And so I started writing this music using banjo sounds and all that on a keyboard and a sequencer and all that kind of stuff. My own way, not being influenced by anybody but what I heard in my head. And I sent it to Bela, and I said, "What do you think?" He said, "This would be great. You get a great band guy. Vinny Caliuta is amazing." And then Bela helped me get the other guys like Sam Bush and Jerry Douglas and all these guys. I'd heard Jerry before, but I didn't know how to get in touch with them. And I went to Nashville to do it. But I went to see Bela in New Jersey around that time before we recorded. And I didn't know if it was going to be a club. I didn't know if he was playing a cafe. And it was a hall for 2,000 people, sold out with a tour bus. And I met the band afterwards, and Victor Wooten is playing bass. And I said, is this what you guys do all the time? And they all started laughing on the bus. I said, wow, you guys are popular. It's a trip. I didn't know. And I was kind of happy that I didn't really know, because I wasn't influenced by anybody's. That whole record came out of my head. All those tunes. It's just my idea of what to do with those instruments as far as my inspiration of using them in melodies.
Yeah.
I still want to do it. I'm in Nashville now, and I want to get some of the baddest young cats that play those instruments now that the pandemic's over. And I want to start playing around here, and I want to start taking that future band on the road. I might even get something together and I'm going to Brazil in July.
Well,
maybe that's the place to debut them. I don't know.
Beautiful.
But yeah, and I still love
beautiful.
that sound, you know.
Yeah.
Soulgrass is one of my favorite groups, you know, with Josh Dion singing his butt off, amazing drummer and singer.
Yeah.
He played bass. Ryan Kavanaugh is a terrific banjo player, and in the beginning I had Christian Howes on fiddle, and who's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that band could just go in so many different directions. We got so much pushback from jazz festivals and festivals around the world that it was a fight the entire time we were together. Jazz festivals said, no, we're not a bluegrass festival. And I'm like, we don't play bluegrass, you know, but we'd always become the underdogs, where people would freak out and give us a triple standing ovation. Oh man, we wish we'd known before. You know, I got so tired of hearing that. And eventually, you know, we're together like 11 years, almost 12 years.
Wow.
Really couldn't break into the States because they just really didn't know where to put us or how to put us somewhere. But I pushed a long time. And it's just like, you know, everybody sort of went their own direction right near the end. But I'm not done with that idea.
It's a beautiful one. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love it, especially with your writing. I mean, you and those instruments. It's such a nice combo. It's really beautiful. I love that one. But Bill, I also wanted to ask you. Just I saw on your website you do a lot of painting, and I didn't know that. So I was quite like, you know, I went to check the news. When's the next tour you have? And then I saw your paintings, and I was like, man, when did you get into painting? And what's your story there? It's like,
what are we at? 2023?
Yeah.
Maybe about, I don't know, if 10 years ago, maybe. My mother's a really well-known.
So late. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it originally started where I just wanted to see if I could paint something, bring it to Japan and sell it. Because I was going to Japan. And somebody said they love art. And I went, okay, easy enough. It's not easy. I tried to paint everything for like a month. I mean, you name it, I was trying to paint it. You don't just wing it. It's like somebody saying, oh, okay, trumpet? I'd love to play trumpet in a band. I think I'll play it and start a band next week. You know, I mean, it doesn't go like that, but it became another expression. To me, all of a sudden, I didn't realize it took over. And I started getting into it where it felt the same way as writing music. Exactly the same. I had no idea. And my wife would tell me, I see you in the music studio starting, you're working on a painting at 9 a.m. and at 6 o'clock at night, you're still there doing it. It takes over. And then I started doing these little caricatures of saxophones and stuff.
I saw that. Yeah, beautiful.
And they sort of evolved into things. And then people buy them at shows. They really like them. And it's sort of like something that if they're really into the show, they get an original painting if they want to buy that and some music. And it sort of took off. And so now I bring them to all the shows.
Wow.
And there's only so much you could carry. But the ones that take a long time that I'll put on the wall and stuff like that, I'm not going to bring those on the road because some of those can take a month with the detail and everything. These are more, you know, I mean, you don't make them up in 2 minutes, but they're sort of ones. If I'm going to sell original ones, you know, there's ones that, you know, it takes a while to figure out what kind of ink, what kind of like whatever, how you're going to do it, what you're going to make. And I sort of narrowed that down to things that I can paint and do on the road too. You know, it's fun. I loved it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a nice side thing of expression also. Like, I completely got you. Yeah, it's a beautiful. Yeah, fantastic.
So happy we have internet. You know, my internet was off, and I'm looking at it working the whole time. So
Yeah, I will not take more of your time. I just wanted to ask you, you already
No,
mentioned.
no.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you for, we talked about the new band, and are you planning to write new music with that one, with John Medaski and Felix and Keith? And when is the new album coming out? You said you're going to mix it in January. Like, I mean, what are your plans for the upcoming months? I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, well, I decided not to go on the road and do the co-led things in the next year or so. And that's hard because it's fun. Me and Mike Stern would do some tours together, me and Robben, and sometimes me and Simon Phillips, or me and Randy, or whoever. It's fun and it can be lucrative, but I decided I'm just going to do the Vans band. Bill Evans and the Vans band featuring whatever. And so I'm not touring in the next, well, I'm going to do some dates with the Modern Standard Supergroup, which is a band with me and Harvey Mason, Daryl Jones, sometimes Felix, and Niels Landoki.
Oh, and Niels, yeah, sure. Yeah.
He's from Copenhagen, and he's sort of the brainstorm behind this, and it's a lot of fun. We did a couple tours with that. We're going to do some States gigs in February, a few, but I'm going to be home the whole time. My thing is just to be working on the book in the morning, get this record done, and it's almost done. I just need a couple parts from a couple people, and put that out in like April, and then in May I'll do this tour for 3 weeks or so in Europe. Going on in June, and then I'm going to go to Brazil to the Manaus Festival the end of July. At some point this year, I'm going to go to Japan. And I'd love to do some work with Russ Ferrante. I love the way he plays.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd love to do something with him and Keith. We're talking about it. Just new projects, different people, because, a lot of times musicians can get caught up in their own small circle of musicians that they're comfortable with. And I'd love to break out of that and play with players I've never played with, because there's so many circles, so many different players, as best you can. I mean, it's not like I can just say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to tour. It doesn't work that way. It's everything's preparation. And unless you're a superstar like Pat Metheny or something that can do what he wants, I'm not in that category. So it's just like, we just do what we can do and then we do it again.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, well, beautiful. It's so nice to hear you have so much energy, and after all you've done already, and it's nice to see that. So beautiful. And yeah, but Bill, I'll just leave you a nice what is today, Tuesday afternoon, and so you can chill. But thanks for sharing some of these stories and stuff. I really appreciate it. So, and I see you in Maribor in May.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.